Material Textile Modern British Female Designers is a presentation of historically important and highly collectible textiles by some of the most important female designers working in Britain in the middle of the 20th century. Britain's history is intricately woven together with the history of textiles, and never more so than following the Second World War. This exhibition celebrates the bold vision of the leading lights of 1950s to 1970s textile design and introduces their iconic work to new collectors. Throughout the period, the designs created by an inspired group of women artists, including amongst them Lucienne Day, Marion Marler, Jacqueline Grogue, and later Barbara Brown and many more, brought modern and contemporary art into the home. Many of the textiles on show, produced by Heels, David Whitehead and Hull Traders, sit within museums worldwide and collections including the V&A and The Whitworth. They've also featured in exhibitions worldwide in recent years and in publications on the history of the evolution of textiles and the textile industry. Victoria Bradley of the V&A has said of this exhibition that it deservedly brings some new names to the public's attention. Pattern makers so good that manufacturers hovered at degree shows to pluck the fruit straight from the tree. It also reminds us just how close the ties were between the world of fine art and textile design during the period, through works such as those of Althea McNeish, Shirley Craven, who were essentially using the textile as painted to blank canvas.
Dolls, Jacqueline Grogue's 1953 design for the modernist textile pioneers David Whitehead Limited, has a wonderful naive style, completely deliberate, as this takes us directly back to her pre-war childhood in Czechoslovakia. Here we see a theme that she often repeated. It's based on the traditional Czech wooden dolls that she treasured as a child. These childhood themes were actively encouraged by staff when she joined the school of the world-famous Wiener Werkstatt in Vienna. Here, she was taught to return to simpler ideals of expressionism and to retain her childlike freshness. This beautiful, simple print, with subtle colour and sketch-like simplicity, does exactly that.
Elizabeth Curry, History of Design at the V&A and RCA, said of Barbara Brown's work that she was always impressed by the groundbreaking nature of her designs. Firstly, the huge scale of her prints, perfectly suited to the new architecture and interior design of the 1960s, as well as public settings, and one of her designs was used, for example, to furnish a lecture hall at the University of Manchester. Like many of her female peers, Brown was encouraged to study textiles at art college, but by her own account, she would have preferred sculpture. This instinct is reflected in the three-dimensional nature of her designs and her creative approach. Spiral, for example, embodies her interest in engineering and was developed from initial sketches of nuts and bolts. This particular design is an example of her preference for working in black and white.
Barbara, so Sweet Corn, 1958, for Heels Fabrics. Tell us a little about this piece.
Well, this was the first one that I ever sold. It came from my degree show at the Royal College, and Tom Worthington came and bought it. And it's, as I say, it's the first one. And I wasn't very good at colourways, because I hated doing colourways, but I can't remember whether this is the original colourway or not, so I'm sorry.
There was one in ochres, more of those ochre colours, I think.
Yes, I can't remember. It's too long ago.
No, not to worry.
Yes.
Longer than we'd like to recall.
It's a long time ago. I don't remember what.
Thank you. Recurrence, 1962, very different to Sweet Corn, which is more painty. We've got these wonderful circles. Was this the first colourway, or was it done in blue first? Do you remember if this was first?
It was this. It was brown and black and grey. And this is the first one, and it's my favourite colourway. And this is the first one of all my abstract ones, you know, the very geometric ones. And I like this one. And they did put it on. They asked me to do a copy to put on ceramics, which I did for midwinters. But this one, and there's another one that went with it, which is just the small spots all over, the small circles. But this one I liked best because it was very simple. And I like them when they're very, very simple.
Frequency, 1969. Again, a very, very different approach. Tell us about this.
Well, this one was much more... I became very interested in geology, and this was much more about earth movements and, you know, how the earth moves and leaves these big things when the mountains move. So to get the strata moving in that way. And that's what this one was about. Heels photographed it very well with, I don't know whether you've ever seen the photograph, but they hung it up, and above it were a lot of chimneys. It was rather wonderful. So it was sort of became part of the landscape in a way. So they photographed it very well. The best one, I think, from that point of view. But it's very much about strata and mountain moving.
So Spiral, a little later, 1969, again for heels, very dynamic. Right. Tell us about this.
Well, this one I like a lot. It was one of two. There was this one and the other one, which is called, I've forgotten.
Could have been Colonnade.
Colonnade, was it? Anyway, there were the two of them, which are very much about sort of engineering drawing in a way. So this one is a great big screw, and the other one was just from the idea of a building in a way. And so that I was very pleased with these, and I like them only when they're in black and white, because it makes more sense in a way, and I like the scale of them.
So we enter the early 1970s here with Ikebana in 1971. So this is an amazing looking piece. Tell us a little bit about the forms and what this comes from.
Well, it's very much the same. It's about movement. And so these two big bits of white coming in from the left are moving all these balls. And so it's about the same sort of thing. It's about earth movements and how it can affect water in a way. So to get the water bubbling up between. So it was very much about earth movements again. But in a very, very geometric way. But you get these great, huge white lumps coming through, which move the water.
Elizabeth Curry, History of Design, V&A and RCA, said of Mary White's work that she was drawn to her lively, colourful fabrics. Coppice was one of the first designs she created for heels, and it underlines her versatility, while her floral prints for Liberty at the same period were more detailed and realistic. Coppice perfectly reflects heels' more contemporary style and was particularly popular when it was later translated into a rug by John Lewis.
Mary Warren's 1955 textile Nautilus for heel fabrics draws deeply on the constructivist movement and sits very comfortably in context of the work of the avant-garde geometric abstraction of the genius who was Nam Garbo. Garbo's influence stretches across the early 20th century through the Bauhaus to St. Ives. He met Kandinsky in 1912 and then really never looked back. Warren's own genius is shown here in this intricate design. The constructivist forms appear to float gently on the textile, delicate, three-dimensional, and truly beautiful. We know little of Warren, and I truly wish we knew more. This extraordinary textile is held both by the V&A and at the Art Institute of Chicago. Showcased at the Festival of Britain in 1953, this is pure 20th century history. This is Lucian Day's 1951 Calyx for Heel Fabrics, a groundbreaking design that genuinely changed textile history. The flower and plant motif are here, but so is the spirit of Miro and clay and Calder. As a textile, in its day, this was little short of revolutionary. It was first seen in the Homes and Gardens Pavilion of the Festival of '53, in a room setting that had been designed by her husband, Robin Day. Yet, there is a real delicacy here, which is enhanced by the linen that it's printed on. It really is quite beautiful, literally a force of nature that opened the door of British homes to modernism.